Lots going on in Washington, sparring over gun control, reshuffling the president's cabinet, tax code reform, the Chuck Hagel nomination for defense secretary. Here to weigh in on the political issues of the day, Democratic analyst Brendan Gill and Republican analyst Bill Spadea. Thanks, guys, for coming on board. Happy New Year. Good to have you back.
Good New Year to you.
Let me get your thoughts on these next, let's focus on the next 2 years, because that's probably when the president will have most of the impact on this second term. But we start out with a variety of issues, and it seems like Benghazi, which was huge, seems to be gone. And now we're talking about the gun control being the big thing.
Right. Well, I think what's going to be unusual about this term of Congress is that you're going to see a lot of work as a result of just what just happened with the fiscal cliff. A lot of the work is going to be front-loaded, which usually doesn't happen in sessions of Congress. So you're going to have to immediately deal with the issue of the debt ceiling. You're going to have to deal with the issue of sequester. You're going to have to deal with entitlement reform. And because of self-imposed deadlines, Congress is going to have to deal with those issues right away, which should make for an exciting first couple of months.
Well, you're right. You're going to have some battles over the confirmation hearings. I think certainly Hagel has gotten himself into hot water with some of his comments over Israel, and I think that has given Republicans some reason to oppose him. So that'll be contentious. Debt ceiling for sure. But when you think about what's really going on, we talk about this gun control debate. I actually think that just like Benghazi, I think that will fade as fast as the Benghazi controversy did. And one of the reasons is that the Democrats are in a very tricky position. Harry Reid has a hard time leading the charge for gun control because he has an A rating with the NRA. You've got members of Congress like Stephanie Herseth who got elected with NRA endorsements. So it's tough for him.
I disagree with you there, Bill. I mean, I do think gun control is not going to fade. I think there is a consensus for something to be done. What it actually looks like in terms of what those reforms are, yet to be seen. But there's definitely the push from the general public to push both the president and Congress to do something.
Sure, and you look at Gabrielle Giffords leading this new charge for gun control. One of the interesting things I found is that Harry Reid, leading Democrat, buddies up to the NRA and sticks this gun legislation within the health care law.
Right.
And he's at the heart of that, and yet you have Republicans on the other side who may not be willing to budge, having given up ground on the fiscal cliff legislation, now saying, well, look, this gun thing is big among our constituency. How do you
listen,
get to the middle?
There's no question that there are common sense gun reform or gun laws that even members of the NRA support. So, for example, the issue of background checks. Now, you can say Senator Reid is close to the NRA. That's fine. But on a common sense reform like background checks, where 2/3 of the NRA members say, hey, we should have background checks for those who want to purchase firearms in this country, you're going to see some consensus. So yes, I mean, the NRA is still going to be a factor. There's going to be a meeting this morning, actually, as we speak, with the NRA and Vice President Biden. But ultimately, I think you're going to see some concrete policies come from both the president and Congress on this issue.
Typically, though, what happens in Washington is they will haggle and wrangle back and forth, and what will come out of it is essentially a Band-Aid that will placate the political voices that are out there. You look at the reality of the gun bans in Chicago, the gun bans in Washington, D.C. In both those cases, crime actually escalated after those bans were in place. You look at a state like Vermont, led by Howard Dean, one of the preeminent liberals in the Democratic Party, and gun ownership is very easy. The very relaxed laws, most relaxed laws in the country, very low crime. So, when you look at a state like Connecticut that has the highest, some of the most restrictive gun laws in the country, and a heinous, awful, horrific crime like this takes place, I don't know that gun control is the answer, but if that debate is going to happen, what we have to watch is that we don't just fall into the trap of putting a Band-Aid on it, talking about it, the political voices go away, and nothing changes.
Well, I'd say this just on gun control. Senator Murphy from Connecticut this morning said that if the assault weapons ban had not expired, he doesn't believe that the Newtown incident would have happened. So that's the newly elected senator from Connecticut saying that he directly thinks there's a correlation between the expiration of the assault weapons ban and that incident. So I would disagree with you respectfully on that point. I do believe that ultimately it's not going to be a Band-Aid. There's going to be some much needed common sense gun reform.
Just a quick fact, though, violent crime has decreased every year since the assault weapon ban expired. Is there a correlation?
Well,
I don't know.
We can say that, but we can also look at the extent of these shootings. We've seen much more damage taken place since that ban has expired. So, there are arguments on both sides, but we won't solve that here. I want to get to another point, though, on some of these nominations. You have a shuffling of the cabinet. You have several key people leaving. Do you see that perhaps the president moving closer to the Republicans and trying to find some common ground here in the people he appoints and even some of the nominations?
Well, certainly John Kerry has total approval from the Republican side. I mean, it was really interesting that, of course, some of the reports came out that they said, well, the Republicans really love Kerry because it frees up that Senate seat. We might get Scott Brown back in the Senate. So, was it political wrangling or are the Republicans, a bit above the partisan battle on this, saying that John Kerry certainly has the foreign policy expertise to lead the State Department?
Well,
I think there's a little bit of both.
I'm not ready to say the Republicans are above the political battle because they haven't done anything to display that yet. I think clearly what you've seen consistently is the President Barack Obama, who's been above the political battle, who continues to do Bill what he believes is in the best interests of this country, and you see that in the nomination of Senator Hagel. I mean, that's a reaching out across the aisle. He's not afraid he's taking criticism from members of his own party on that nomination. I think ultimately that nomination will be successful, but I think he has shown continually the ability to try to find the middle ground, which is what most people in this country want him to do.
It's interesting. We could be in the same country watching the same news and have the exact opposite position. I think the president has done nothing but stick to his partisan roots and dig deep. I mean, you look at his comments about the debt ceiling, saying, I will absolutely not negotiate with Republicans over the debt ceiling. And what's amazing about it is he's being disingenuous. He's talking about paying
the problem is
current bills. Only $19 billion goes to pay our current debts in terms of the interest on that debt. So when you talk about the overall picture of $300 billion, the president's being very disingenuous.
Here's the problem. The problem is he's willing to negotiate, but who do you negotiate with?
No, he said I'm not willing to negotiate.
The speaker, the Speaker of the House, who could not even produce a vote within his own caucus. I mean, so you don't. I mean, listen. I feel for the president because I don't even know who you talk to in your party.
Well, wait. First of all, they not only produced a vote, but they passed the legislation that the president wanted. So I think we're way beyond that.
John Boehner's in an interesting position, unenviable. Whatever party you're in, we'll see how that plays out in the coming months as we get to more of this. Fights over these things, but we'll have you guys back. We'll talk more about those things.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Brian.
You bet.